The information provided in this show is for informational and educational purposes only. This show is not investment advice, nor is it intended to address the financial needs of any particular viewer. The opinions expressed on this show are not intended to be an endorsement of any particular investment, strategy of service, or any other kind. You must make an independent decision regarding investments or strategies mentioned throughout the show. Before acting on information in the show, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular situation and strongly consider seeking advice from a financial advisor. Hi, I'm Elisabeth Dawson, and thank you for listening on our show, Ways to Love Your Money. We have some amazing guests that you're going to be listening to, but one of the points that I want to bring up today is I want to talk about the importance of estate planning. If you don't have an estate plan, a will, a living trust, something of this nature, the state of California especially will have a plan for you, let alone the federal government. So if you don't want to share all of your money while you're working with hundreds of millions of different strangers, then you need to be a control freak as you are in your life today and start planning for that future. So we're going to have a wonderful guest on our show today that's going to talk about the importance of estate planning the right way, but it's not just about when you die. Most people think today it's about when you die that you need to create an estate plan. And if you don't have one, I've heard many people that are very, very wealthy and they say, well, when I die, I don't care. Well, why did you work so hard to accomplish it? Why did you work so hard to become even like celebrities, famous? Why did you do that? When you were given the blessing of having that wealth or any wealth of any kind, even at a $100,000 estate, you could be paying expenses in your estate through probate and executor fees of $8,000 to $10,000. These are things that we'll talk about, and we actually have it on page 46, the cost of probate, just average probate, from $100,000 to $10 million to $20 million to $100 million, and what those average costs are. And you could have actually done a will, if your estate is small enough, or a living trust to be able to provide for those, being proactive, if you will, so that those things don't occur. But it's not just about when you die. It's about the living benefits of what this planning does. Health care directive, making sure that in the event that you have a health event, or if you were in a car accident and you had to go to a hospital, what are your specifications of how you want to be treated? If you have a written estate plan or a written will or written directives of what you want to occur, then you don't leave it to the hospital to figure that out for you. Millennials and Gen Xers, which is amazing to me, about 70% of that group who even have children at home, which the majority of them do not have any kind of plan whatsoever. If you are in that ballpark, you need to be taking action today. Don't be part of that 70% that hasn't planned. They have failed to plan. We say that we're busy, but your children, you're never too busy for. Your charities, you're never too busy for. Your spouse, you're never too busy for. And you're so busy at working at life today. What about life in the event that sometimes the unexpected does occur? Now, if you are above the age of 65 or older, it's 60% of that population does not have an estate plan or a will of any kind. We are leaving massive amounts of wealth to basically strangers to decide what they want to do with it. And also, when you're in the situation that if you had a health event actually occur, like I said, a car accident, what if it's that you're in long-term care? If you don't have a plan, your estate will be evaporated, and you will have the risk of not being able to sustain the amount of money that you need over the time you have remaining in life. That is the key. We want our money to last us longer than the time we have on this earth. We have a very temporary period of time. We think it's a very long time, but it's not. We have our lifetime, our existence to be able to plan for the unexpected, but majority of people out there, between 60 to 70% are failing to plan for that in their life. Don't just think you have to do it when you get into retirement, that now you're going to plan for that estate plan. Now you're going to be planning for your family. I talk a little bit too, and this with our clients, that if you do have young children, design it in the event that something happens to you unexpectedly. Well, one day we know we're going to die. We are guaranteed to die. Like they say, there are a couple of guarantees in life: death and taxes. So what are we doing about those things? Are we going to just blow off taxes? No, or we will have trouble, right? Why blow off the fact that you have living value of today of what you've worked so hard for to accomplish? So don't blow it off. Don't be a professional procrastinator out there. Be a proactive planner for yourself. And there's a professional for everything. I've had people tell me, gosh, I can plan this on my own. I can plan my estate plan and my will on my own. Not many people can. Again, this is why attorneys who are passionate about this, that's why they do what they do. And if they specifically do that and that's all they do in their practice, those are the types of attorneys that you actually want to seek out for that estate planning, that help, that education, that direction, so that you know, gosh, if I am in a health situation, do I want to be resuscitated to go through heroic measures to save my life if I'm in a car accident or something actually happens and it's a freakish thing? Most people I ever talk to, they don't want those things to occur. They don't want to be hooked up to a bunch of different things and they just don't have any ability to recover to full life. If you want that, you have to write it and have it documented, have it notarized, and you have to do that with the right professionals to get you there. Now, I also talk about this too when it comes to children, that you should have an emotional caregiver, an emotional trustee, as well as a financial trustee. And I really don't think it should be the same people. And it's because the responsibility of caring for your children is so grandiose that someone handling the money and trying to do both, it's so hard. It's so difficult. We'll be talking about that today in our interview with our wonderful, wonderful guest, and her name is Alejandra Rodriguez, and we call her Alex. She's a wonderful, wonderful resource. She actually gave us the probate schedule that you see on page 46 in our book, and if you want a copy of just that, email us at questions with an S at Elisabeth with an S Dawson.com, and we'll get you a copy of that probate schedule that she gave us and what we were really privileged to have in our book. So there's so much to the full wealth and knowledge of planning financially right. Your written financial plan, your written income plan, your written estate plan, your written long-term care health plan, or your health event plan. If you don't have something in writing and you don't have it designed for someone to follow, you are not going to be happy with the results. So sometimes people think they have a plan. When they actually start talking about it, when I actually meet with people and they discover they really never had a plan, this is why I have so much passion to educate you all. And I know you're truly hearing things because I'm hearing from listeners saying, gosh, I really love listening to your show. I really love, asking you questions. I really love the fact that I'm hearing things that I've never heard before. And that's really the passion of what this show is all about. So without any more delay, we're going to invite our wonderful guest, Miss Alex Rodriguez. And we can't wait for you to hear what she has to say today. Welcome to our show today. I'm Elisabeth Dawson. This is Ways to Love Your Money. We have a wonderful, beautiful guest today, Alejandra Rodriguez, and she's the founder and principal of Rodriguez Law here in San Diego. And we will actually reference the book a little bit today on page 46. We're going to be talking about probate, and we're going to be talking about just the cost and effectiveness of estate planning, wills and trusts, and what the factors are out there, what the percentages are out there, and why we are working so hard to earn our money, but we aren't necessarily doing the best job to protect it. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome, we call her Miss Alex, but it's Alejandra Rodriguez, and we're so happy to have her here as our guest today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're
glad
welcome.
to be here.
You're welcome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your practice and what you really are so passionate about and why we love you so much too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think I had mentioned this to you before. I started my practice 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, after law school, I went to work for a federal judge in Vegas, and I did that for 2 years. And while I was working with the judge, I realized I really don't like litigation. I don't like being in a courtroom. I just don't like the
I've heard that from attorneys before. Yes.
Surprising, right?
Yes.
That you're an
Yes.
attorney, you don't want to be doing litigation. But
Yes.
that was the boat that I was in. And so once I was done with my clerkship with the judge, I came back to San Diego. And I started my practice, and that's when I decided to do estate planning, because for me it's the perfect blend of being proactive so that you can set your plan in place to protect your loved ones, to avoid having to go to court when the unexpected happens.
Right. We talk about this all the time with our clients. We all want to be in control of our lives to a certain point, But yet when we forget this, it's kind of like that responsibility, that relationship with money gets lost.
Exactly.
But it's not just about money, right? It's about your wellness in the event that you have a health event. If you have children, if you have something catastrophic that happens in your life, if you want to have control over those events in your life, it's really important to plan for that, right?
Exactly. It's about keeping your agency so that, we're not just talking about, and this is the thing that I think it's important to let people know. It's not just about what happens when you die.
Right.
It's also about what happens if you were to become incapacitated. You want to make sure that you haven't lost your voice. And it is possible to lay a plan out so that if you are incapacitated and you're in the hospital, that your loved ones know exactly what you would want to have happen. And that's kind of about what you were saying.
Right. Like we always talk here about having a written retirement financial plan. It's just as important to have a written estate plan that really picks apart every little thing that you would want to have happen. Because if you don't really have someone in your best interest trying to make those decisions for you, and you don't have a legal situation that allows them to do so, don't you want to have that control to be able to say, gosh, if this happened, if this happened, if this happened, and you don't have to be in your 60s or 70s to figure this out. There's such a high percentage of even Gen Xers and millennials today that have about 70% of them do not have a plan, do not have an estate plan, do not have a will. But it's even more staggering, like we were talking about too, that even over the age of 65, retirees, less than 60% of them even have any kind of an estate plan or will. And this is all from ARP and Gallup polls and things like this. And so that's why my passion is to educate people even that much more.
It's shocking that people do wait that long to get it started, but the nice thing is that it's never too late. And so if you haven't done one now, whether you're 30 or 75, you can always get it done, and sooner rather than later.
And wouldn't you say even younger people, especially like the millennials and Gen Xers that are having families, that they really are saying, life is so busy, I can't sit down to do this. How can you tell them to say, make it easier for them, a little bit more comfortable to talk to them about? Because just like we talk about, even here, if you want to get a copy of this is a probate schedule that Alex had given to us a couple years ago. We actually have it in the book as well. But even for the smallest of estates, $100,000 asset-based estate could be looking at total fees in probate of $8,000 or more.
Yep.
I read something recently too about $400,000. They say it's about $20,000 or more. Even on this schedule, it said if you had a $400,000 net worth of estate, if you don't have a plan, state of California and the federal government has a plan for you,
right.
And these fees could be $22,000 in excess.
Precisely.
There
so
may be taxes and more
a sliding
too.
fee going up, and the way that the California courts do it is it's a statutory fee, and that's how they determine what the attorney is going to receive and what your executor is going to receive, and it's basically the same cost. So you just double the amount in column 1, and that gives you your grand total.
Right.
Like, as you mentioned, it's in your book, and you can take a look at it there. So yes, it's extremely expensive, and I think the other thing that people don't keep in mind is that at least for the statutory fee, courts don't take into account what your debts are. They're just looking at what is your fair market value of the estate that needs to go through our court process, and that's what they're going to use to establish those fees.
And I think people don't even realize that you don't have to have a $10 million estate or a $20 million estate or a $5 million estate. Even at $100,000, $400,000, $600,000, $1 million in Southern California, or even statewide, is not a lot to consider for a high estate value or a low estate value.
Right.
That is kind of almost median today. So those are fees, even that where you kind of show here about $46,000. To do a will or to do a trust in a will and just really design this how you would want it, even how you would want money to go to respectful heirs, to children, who you want to take care of them. It's so powerful to think about those things. And if you're not planning, if you are being a procrastinator saying you're going to get it to next year or next month or 5 years from now, or you don't think that there's a value for it,
right? Because
maybe you think, gosh, I don't even have real estate, but you might have more intangible assets. You just don't know, especially if you have children out there.
Exactly, and that's kind of the big thing. That's people's most important thing in their life usually. When you have children, especially young children, it's on you as the parent to make sure that you have some sort of a plan in place in case you were to become incapacitated or if something did happen to you. You want to make sure that the people you want raising your children are already appointed and nominated. And that's the other thing. So you were mentioning in terms of you don't need a large estate to be doing estate planning. often work with families who might have really modest estates, but they have young minor children, and we need to have a plan in place for them to make sure that they're taken care of, because they're the most important people, obviously, in your life. And that kind of coincides with having enough life insurance, which kind of delves into your world, right? And especially for my young families with minor children, I tell them oftentimes they're underinsured. They don't have enough in life insurance, because if something happens to them, they want to make sure that their guardians have the sufficient funds to raise their children.
Right, and it's so important to have that asset if it doesn't exist somewhere. If you're still in your building years and you're trying to put your retirement plan together, you're trying to pay for your home, you might even have a small business, you're working, you're building, but at the same time, what the life insurance piece does, which is so powerful, is it funds the estate to take care of those children, to take care of your spouse in the event that you're not here and your income stops.
Precisely.
So we talk about that as an economic benefit, and I know you and I have talked about that too. But it's one thing to do, an estate plan. It's one thing to do a living trust or a will or even dynasty planning and things of that nature. But if you don't fund it, there's nothing to protect.
Exactly.
There's nothing to protect. And we even talk about this too, especially when there's minor children. And I know you and I have spoken about this, about having a financial, trustee, if you will, and an emotional caregiving, or caregiver trustee, because in my opinion, I don't think they should be the same person.
Right.
Sometimes they're going to be, without a doubt.
Right.
But I don't think that they should actually be the same people.
Precisely.
Because there's different pieces that kind of fall in. It's not that the emotional trustee over the children can't get help from the financial part, but it's that it's so large to be able to manage both.
Precisely, and oftentimes the individual or individuals that you want to be raising your children the way that you would and continue that legacy of love that as if you had been there, they may not be the individuals that might have the most financial savvy that you want to be naming as the person in charge of the, as the trustee, as what you were saying. So the two components are the individual raising the children, which is the guardian, versus if you do create a trust, having that trustee, it could be a separate person who's not the person raising the children, be managing all of those assets. And that's nice because it's a checks and balances, right? Like they're hopefully working together. You don't want to name people that don't get along. You want to make sure there's a good cohesiveness there. But it's super important.
And the work that you do, I love because it's so thorough, it's so detailed, and it goes into the specifics of what the consumer is asking for. And there might even be situations where there's a special needs for a child or even a relative, a niece or a nephew, and your concerns that, and we've shared these conversations where sometimes they might be on social benefits, if you will.
Receiving public benefits.
Yes, receiving public benefits, getting all those socialized programs involved, and then if they have an estate that they're awarded, all of a sudden they're no longer on those programs.
Precisely.
So I think it's really important, and I know you did this with one of our clients, that it was spelled out. It wasn't that there was a special need today, but it was being proactive to say if there ever becomes a special need or protection for that beneficiary in the future, to actually have it built into the estate plan now. Because, unfortunately today, psychological issues, drug issues, alcohol issues, or even someone gets in an accident and they need to be on those programs, those benefits, and they can't necessarily get them if they get a large influx of an asset.
Precisely, and it's so much more economical and affordable to do it now ahead of time proactively versus once the inheritance goes through and assuming it has to go through probate and then trying to fix that after the fact. That's a lot more expensive to do.
And it's no one wants to spend the money now, but literally they don't want to spend the money later. And I've heard so many people tell me, well, gosh, I don't care when I'm dead. Well, you do, or you wouldn't have been working so hard to build it. And if you don't have a plan, the state of California and the federal government have a plan for all your money, and 90% of your money pretty much could go, maybe that's an exaggerated number, but so much of it could go to all these programs that are basically taxes and things of that nature, or fees that we just really didn't foresee. But it is so inexpensive to plan ahead of time. It's just about being proactive today versus a professional procrastinator, which there's so many people that are.
And there's additional benefits as well. So for example, going on the topic you chose of the special needs trust, if you do a special needs trust now for your beneficiary, then there's no Medi-Cal recovery payback. Once that beneficiary dies, whatever income or assets are left inside of the trust upon that beneficiary's death, it can go to whoever you want next, versus if the beneficiary were to receive it first and then have to set up a special needs trust after the fact, there would be a Medi-Cal recovery payback provision part of that.
That's an incredible position to actually know and hear, and I bet you there's a lot of listeners right now that have never heard that.
Right, lots of benefits to planning ahead of time.
Yes. So you're speaking to a group of people that they love what you're saying right now. What could you tell them to take action today to make a difference for their future and not be that procrastinator?
I would say that you need to act now rather than later, sooner rather than later, and by creating an estate plan. And the easiest way to go about that, I think, is just asking for an initial consultation. And for your clients, I am happy to offer them a complimentary estate planning consultation so they can at least learn more about what the different options are. Is a will package their better bet, or should they be doing a trust package? And a lot of that depends on the type of assets they have and what it is that they want to accomplish.
And you go over those recommendations with them and everything too. So, and I know you encourage them to also seek more financial help, you know, and you're in this world right now, and I know when I've asked you these questions too, like where you're at right now for your retirement and your plans for the future, and it's a work in progress, and it couldn't be better stated. You know, I think all of us are a work in progress, and we're just human beings. You know, we're just human beings. So it's great to know that that's part of your planning process in your future too. And
absolutely, it's so critical to have a team of advisors. You know, you need to have your financial advisor, your accountant, your attorney, and whether that also includes having a corporate attorney. You need to have all of those in place to make sure that you're able to succeed. And that's not just for myself, that's also for people in general.
And it's really about getting educated.
Exactly.
It's truly about getting educated, knowing all of your options.
Precisely.
And knowing that it can actually evolve into more if you want to make modifications or changes. And people don't, you know, I think sometimes people will think, oh, well, it's set in stone, I can't do anything to it. And that's really not true. The truth of the matter is you can put so much more work into your will, your living trust, your plans of your life today, because so much happens in 2 weeks, let alone 2 years or 10 years. And children grow up, and you might buy more assets, you might buy another piece of real estate, you might do more with business, you never know.
Precisely.
So you need to have that knowledge that amendments are really part of this planning process, because again, if you don't have a plan, there's going to be a government entity that has a plan for you.
Exactly. And as opposed to trying to avoid it or putting your head in the sand and not addressing it, the easiest thing is to reach out to your trusted advisors that you have in place now and ask them for more information or maybe for a referral to speak to somebody.
Yeah, and I brought this up, and it was an article that I pulled up, and I'm just going to kind of go over it with the audience today, and it's really amazing because most people think that if you're wealthy, this is the only time that you need to really work on building your estate plan. And it's interesting, you know, Aretha Franklin last year, a celebrity that passed away, she didn't have a will, she didn't have a trust, she had no plan. She was 76 years old. And it was estimated about an $84 million estate, and she has 4 sons. She was divorced, and you know what's going to happen? Well, eventually it might get to her children, but after probate fees and executor fees, or administrative fees, taxes, what will really actually of her legacy go down to her children? And you would think people like this would actually have made a plan. And a couple years back, it was Prince. He was 57. Yeah, most 57-year-olds don't think they need to do an estate plan. But I have all these different ages as well, and even Michael Jackson, you know, had an enormous estate. They're still going over it. He was 50 years of age. Amy Winehouse, 27. Bob Marley, way back when, 36 years of age. It doesn't matter what your age is, start sooner, take action now, because you're building your wealth today. Jimi Hendrix was 27. Sonny Bono was 62. Kurt Cobain was 27 years of age. So these are just a handful of celebrities that haven't planned right, and we think, gosh, if they have all that wealth, why don't they do this? Why haven't they listened to advisors to do that? And I think it's a paramount piece, because whether you have a estate worth $100,000 or $100 million, you owe it to yourself to have that respect for money, to plan for your situation today, and also for future generations to come. You've worked hard for it. Where do you want it to go? If you don't have family that you want it to go to, have it go to your favorite charity.
Exactly.
Because honestly, if you can decide where you want that money to go to, it's so much better than it just going to a bunch of different strangers that really had no idea of how hard it took for you to build this wealth and build this legacy. And what do you want to be known for? You know, we're here for a short period of time, even though we think it's a long period of time. We're here for a short period of time. But if we want to have the right care, even in a health event, Like you said, if we become incapacitated, how do we know that we're going to be cared for the way we want to?
Exactly.
What if we have a long-term care event when we're older? A lot of people in their 30s and 40s and 50s aren't thinking about that, but the average age person that goes into a long-term care facility is 48 years of age. We don't think about these things.
Yeah.
So, I'm so grateful that you've been on the show. I hope you'll come back.
Of course.
I hope you'll be a bigger part of it. We're so grateful that you were part of our book, which, again, you could read a piece that Alex gave us information on. If you want some more of that information, we can get it to you. We would love to know any questions that you have, whether it's for Alex or for us. Please email us at questions@elizabethwithans.dawson.com. And this is a very powerful meeting that we had today, a very powerful interview. And again, it's about taking action today. It's about taking the procrastination wheels off the bike and saying, I'm going to go get this done. I have to have a sense of urgency to take care of myself, my spouse, my partner, my family, my children, my favorite charity or extended family. And how do I do this and how do I do it right? Number one, it's about taking that first step, which is the hardest part, and getting educated. Talk to a estate planning attorney that just really focuses on the goods and the needs of everything that you want to accomplish, and get your questions answered. Sometimes this takes a really long time and a process to figure out, but you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to everything you've been so blessed to receive in your life and to create. And again, Alex is an incredible resource for that too. And we're so glad that you've been here and you shared your expertise
As are
and
you.
knowledge.
Thank you so much. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Well, I will finish one more thing because you said you had a fun fact, and your fun fact is what?
Oh, I like to salsa dance.
You like to salsa
dance? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, do you do it regularly? Is it something
I used to a lot more regularly 8 years ago. Now it's just every now and then. But that is actually how I met my partner Alex.
Oh, that's
Alex.
so great. Yes.
Yeah.
So we have Alex and Alex, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's more of your fun things
Yeah.
that you like to do. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. I think everyone needs to have that passionate hobby. So it's wonderful that you shared that with us.
Thank you.
It's the human side of all of
Exactly.
us. So again, thank you so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it,
We're
Elizabeth.
grateful for it, and I'm sure our listeners are very happy about what they're hearing today. So with that, we will break, and we will talk to you in the near future.